We are SRC, and we're so pleased to be here with you today for a novel look at the Bible, what it means for all of us. Happy belated New Year to everybody. Today we begin our series on the book of Revelation. My name is Mark Thomas. I'll be moderating today's program. Just a few things for the audience before I introduce our panel. Please keep your microphones on mute during the program. This is necessary because if any mics are on, it just creates too much noise and confusion in the show. So, but we do, however, want our audience contribution, questions or comments. So if you could just use the Zoom feature for that, and we will then call on you, at which time you can unmute your mic. If you'd rather, though, you can still ask a question through the chat feature at the bottom and middle part of the Zoom screen, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as we go. Our panel today is Anala D., Archie Sanders, and Dr. Kedar Griffo. They have all spent many years looking for the true meaning of the Bible and many other spiritual and esoteric writings. It is human nature to want to know who we are and where we came from. And SRC knows there is ancient wisdom in the Bible and other places that is concealed or manipulated in traditional religions such as Christianity. This knowledge used to be for a select few. We want to change that. SRC wants to illuminate this knowledge and so discover the gods that we are. Anala and Archie are both ordained ministers. Anala has written 2 books and is working on her 3rd, and is also a noted inspirational speaker. Archie has pastored for over 20 years in Virginia, and he is an authority on the Bible and how it came to its present form. Dr. Griffo has a very extensive resume. He has written numerous books, and he is known for his expertise on the Bible and how it relates to our bodies and the cosmos. So please read our newsletter, though, to get their full bios. It's good. It's interesting reading. Okay. It seems like just surviving 2020 was an accomplishment in itself, but SRC was not idle during that time. Last year, we did 4 series, beginning with the Imagination series and going on to illuminate the Willie Lynch story, The Art of Creation, and finally the Many Mansions series. That was a total of, I think, 17 episodes altogether or something like that. But if you missed any of them, please go to our Shifting Religious Concepts YouTube channel and check them out. So we come to the biblical book of the Revelation. Today, I hope you're excited to sit in on this first installment. If you are familiar with this famous book through the traditional church, you know that it is often portrayed as an ominous and dark writing full of allegory and symbolism. And depending on who you ask, it could be talking about the past, it could be talking about the present, or a terrible future of humanity. SRC has a different interpretation on this, founded on historic knowledge and on spiritual insight. Over the course of this series, the panel will tell you the fascinating story of how this document actually became part of the Bible, and then go on to dive deep into its true meaning, unlike any you've heard. So, Anala, let's begin. I know you have some takeaways that you want to present for this series, so please.
So first, let me just say good morning and happy belated New Year to all of you. And yes, we do have some takeaways, and we are so excited that you're here today, and we are excited to bring the book of Revelation to you. We talked about this a long time before we decided to unpack this part of the Bible, but we are so excited to bring it to you, and we're happy that you are here. So our takeaways today are where and how Revelation came about, the role of Paul, the real purpose of the book called Revelation, your body and the book of Revelation, what and who is the light of the world, and what is the significance of Revelation in your everyday life. So you don't want to miss a single episode of this series because it's going to be so good.
All right, thank you for that. So we're going to get into this. I'm going to read just the first 3 verses of this book. It just kind of just lay a little foundation. It reads, "The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John, who bear record of the word of God and of the testimony of Jesus Christ and of all things that he saw. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of the prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. Okay, and all of that kind of sets us up for my first question to you, although it's not about the book, it's not about the content of the book, it's about how the book came to be in the Bible. So please share with us the fascinating history of the book of Revelation, where it came from, and how it was included in the Bible as the last book.
Well, we all recognize that the book of Revelation is number one, the last book of the Bible. Number two, it's been said that it's the oldest book of the Bible. And number three, that it's the strangest book of the Bible. Now, Professor Hilton Hartman, he said that, and he's the author of several publications, including the book Son of Perfection, in which I've conducted most of my research. He said that the book of Revelation is so strange that even the best brains of the Christian world have never been able to interpret it. He said that Revelation is so old that its origin has been lost in the night of time. And I believe him because, Revelation has been taught so many ways and scared people to death and all that. So I'm just excited that today we're going to be breaking down Revelation. We want to take as much time as necessary to do this. We don't want to rush through because there's so many so much symbolism in the book of Revelation. And so we have people on the panel, as Thomas said, that is going to be able to break that down for all of us. But before we start to unpack these secrets that's revealed in Revelation and disguised under the auspice of religion, let us respond to the question of our moderator, Mark Thomas, of how we came about the book of Revelation. To do this, we need to talk about a man whom Professor Hartman calls the active man of the New Testament, better known as Paul. Now, Paul's real name was, and I'm probably going to mess this up a little bit, was Apollonius. That was Paul's real name. But his friends and followers called him Paul or Paulus. Just like we would have a nickname when we were growing up, people didn't really call you by your name, they call you a nickname. So his friends call him Paul or Paulus. Now, Apollonius or Paul was a great philosopher, mystic, and magician. He was doing these things. He was the philosopher of the first century, and he became the mystery man of the New Testament. Now, around 46 AD, Paul went to India because he wanted to study the Hindu religion. He wanted to be initiated in the Indian mysteries, just like we would go abroad to study and become initiated in something. That's what Paul did. And when he went there, Paul was given the original scroll, which would become the last book of the Bible. Just like when you go to a seminar or something like that, and everybody gives you the materials that you're going to need to study from so that you can become certified or whatever in the class that you went to. That's what they did for Paul. So they gave Paul the original scroll. Now, Paul brought the scroll home with him, and he retired in a place called Patmos, which is referenced in the first chapter of Revelation, verse 9. Now, you're going to see it talks about John, but you're going to see that Paul was also in this same place. And you can go and pull that book up, the first chapter of Revelation, verse 9, and see that. And it was here in this hour that Paul translated the original scroll into his native tongue. And it was here that Paul also revised the scroll to make it harmonize with the conditions of his country and the conditions and customs of his people. So don't take the word of SRC for anything that we are saying to you today. Do your own research. You will discover conclusive evidence. You will find conclusive evidence that proves that all reference to the gospel of Jesus in the book of Revelation as it relates to John the Divine are fraudulent interpolations. In other words, the insertion of something that wasn't originally there. That's what that is. And it was pure plagiarism is what it was, because Paul manipulated the original work to make it look like his work. This is what Paul did. And you can go and check that out and find that out for yourself. Now, he titled the first copy of the book, he titled it Initiation of Anointed Esuus, that's I-E-O-S-U-S, which is a Greek word meaning healer. When the Greeks got their hands on Paul's copy of the copied scroll, they changed the name to Apocalypse, meaning the complete destruction of the world. And when the Greeks translated the copy into English, the title was changed to The Revelation. And St. John, the Divine, was presented as the author. That's why you will find John's name throughout the book of Revelation. Now, why would Paul do something like this? Why would he do that? Well, just like people of today, and we revealed this through SRC, Paul was not free from a mind that had developed into a state of egotism. It was all about him. And he went through great lengths to hide the source of the original material. And he was very careful to make the writings appear to be his original work. But the problem was this. The problem was the field of the Kundalini. He didn't understand the power, nor could he understand the book of the 7 seals. We're going to get into all of that a little bit later as we move through this show. But see, he couldn't understand that, so he couldn't do a good job of breaking it down and unpacking it. Now, Paul's work was found by a person named Marcion at Ephesus after his death around 98 AD. And Marcion is known as Mark in the Bible, and also known as the father of Christianity, or the father of the New Testament. Mark was a very educated person and an influential person, and he spoke the Samaritan language just like Paul did. But like most, Mark was looking for fame and fortune. He had heard about the great work of Paul, and about 30 years after Paul had died, Mark went to Ephesus and Antioch and collected all the work of Paul that he could find, which included the Hindu scroll. Now let's understand that Paul was known as the father of Christianity because it was him that produced the writings that would become the New Testament. But it was Marcion, who actually translated the writings into Greek. And this work that Mark did laid out the foundation for the New Testament. Now, Charles B. Waite, who was a tireless researcher, he just searched for the truth because he knew that it had to be more. So he went beyond everything to present that there was no question about the fact that the work that was presented in the New Testament was fabricated by the biblical plagiarists. He also demonstrated that the author and Luke, the author known as Mark and Luke Gospels, and also the Pauline epistles were one of the same person. So all of these, the Mark, the Luke, all those Gospels were written by the same person. So the evidence of plagiarism became clear when Mark attempted to translate the Hindu scrolls. And when he wanted to translate them into Greek, he found that its symbols, just like Paul, he found that its symbols and allegories were just too deep for him to fathom. Therefore, he just kind of determined that the symbols and allegories were useless and put them aside. But today, we are so fortunate because the seekers of the truth left a lot of information that we could go back and research. We're blessed that the Greek translators preserved that truth and preserved the correct scroll as the original scroll proves and shows how greatly the clever priests distorted the scrolls in order to make it acceptable to the church authorities as part of the Bible. They went through a lot to make us believe that it was their original work, and they went through a lot to put in the Bible the untruth. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions on that from anybody? Or comments from our other panelists? I have a couple of questions, and I'm wondering, is the original manuscript that came from Asia, is that still present? Can you actually find that today? Do any of the panel know that answer to that question?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I know so much of the Bible was destroyed, and so I'm not sure about whether or not you can find the original scroll. I'm sure that is somewhere. So somebody else might want to respond to that.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Arch.
Happy belated New Year. Look, there's a guy that by the name of Damas that was a Greek historian that wrote a biography on Apollonius. I may be pronouncing it wrong myself, but Apollonius, and he was a Greek historian. And what happened, when he did that biography, they wanted to make sure that Paul named Apollonius, wherever it appeared in there, they wanted him to insert the name of Jesus. So that's one of the things that we're going to find out about. The original manuscript was to be destroyed, but it wasn't. Now, when we talk about the original manuscript, the Apocalypse itself, it's written in symbolism, but that is the original transcript, but it's hidden. So the plain eye can't see it. And I imagine we're going to get into that.
Yeah. Archie, do you know the religion I mean, it didn't come from Christianity originally, did it? The original Apocalypse?
No, the New Testament itself is an old Hindu scroll. As Anala was saying, Paul wanted to learn the Hindu religion. When he went to India, he was given that scroll. So a lot of times I tell people that you don't realize that the New Testament is a old Hindu scroll, do you? And most people don't, because you have to do a lot of search. But guess where he went at? And that's why Nala was saying that he was the first one to translate it and write it and interpolate put some things in there that referred to him to make him look like, it actually started with him. But we're going to get deeper. It's a lot of secrecy that we're about to bring up.
Okay, well, why don't we get right into that? I'm going to ask you, why was the book of Revelation referred to as the Apocalypse of John? And what's the true meaning of the word apocalypse? And what's the origin of that ancient wisdom are we missing? Was the Son of Man added? And you already broached that a little bit, but
yeah.
Let's go ahead.
Well, I must start with the dictionary, because the dictionary has the apocalypse as the Bible, been in the Bible as the book of Revelation, and it states any of a number of anonymous Jewish or Christian texts from around the 2nd century BC to the 2nd century AD, containing prophetic or symbolic visions, especially of the imminent destruction of the world and the salvation of the righteous. And most times somebody say Revelation, they're scared. Oh no, the monsters in there going to hell and burning forever and all that's in there. It talked about the end of the world. That's the definition, especially as described by these texts. A great catastrophe that results in widespread destruction or the collapse of civilization. This is what Revelations is they're saying it's relating to the apocalypse. And I quote, the United States was calling in airstrikes and heavy armor until we had the feeling that the whole thing was going to end in an apocalypse. That was quoted by a man by the name of Philip Robertson. And it talks about a prophetic disclosure or revelation. Now, that is the definition that we get from the dictionary. Now, what is the true meaning? The origin and what ancient wisdom are we missing? In the old Greek translation, the title of the scroll was simply apocalypse, a Greek word meaning to reveal, to disclose, to disrobe, to unveil. And that was the reason why the clever priest translated the title to Revelation. There's somebody got to understand what they were trying to do here. Now, the apocalypse contains in symbol and allegory the science of man and the secret of regeneration. Modern science has not gone that far yet, so you got to go beyond the basics to get an understanding of this. And we at SRC we're going to open up some things to you that help you come to understand what this apocalypse is about. The apocalypse is the great parable of the New Testament. It deals with the allegory of Genesis as to the fall of man. So you have to look at both books, Genesis and Revelation, because it refers to the human body and the human body's deepest functions. That is what you're going to find out about this revelation. The ancient masters taught the science of unfolding the faculties of the higher nature by means of self-discipline, by technique. Spiritual truths were capable of re-verification by each generation. And you got to understand, this is something. Look at some of the secret societies. They consistently follow what has been put down to them generation for generation, so that they will stay in step with training the initiatives as to what they should do and how they should go about doing it. The secret science is contained in the apocalypse. According to Professor Hotima, the apocalypse is a scripture of extreme antiquity, written many ages before anyone ever heard of the gospel of Jesus, and reproduces what is for older even than itself. The book is a sublime Kabbalistic summary of all the occult figures. It divides its images into which is in Revelation, into three septenaries, after which there is a silence in heaven. And we're going to open it up to people. They're going to see where that silence, as you read, if you ever read Revelation, there's a silence in heaven. Then there are 7 seals to be opened. There are 7 mysteries to know. There are 7 difficulties to conquer. There are 7 trumpets to sound and 7 cups to empty. The book treats of both terrestrial, which deals with the earth, and spiritual things. It treats of man, the subject of the Bible, as a dual entity related to the temporal and eternal worlds, and describes man's redemption, not by a redeemer, but by man himself. As some doctors for profit and power teach people to believe that disease is a mysterious demon that can be only subdued by them, some of the clergy, for the same purpose, teach people to believe that man's redemption can be accomplished only by their work. So there's a lot we're going to have to open. So the apocalypse, which it sort of ties my tongue up as we talk about it, but the book of Revelation, you're going to see that there's a lot in there that the clever priest wanted to hide from us, from the masses.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Is that why it talked about the Omega, the first and the last? Because you mentioned the book of Genesis. So Is that why it says I'm the Alpha and the Omega, because it's saying, it's about the beginning and it's about the end.
Yes.
But not the end meaning death and destruction and all of that, the way that we were taught that in church.
No, not the world itself, but as you're going to see, I don't want to try to jump ahead of everything, but you're going to see man himself, how when I talked about being regenerated, you died and been born again. To be born again is to die. And we're gonna find out it is better to die than to be born. It'll all come together. The beginning and the end. It speaks of us, and they did not want man. They did not want the mass to know that it was speaking of the regeneration of us, our body, within us.
Okay, I think that's going to lead us right into Dr. Griffo here. I mean, that sounds like a good spring. I formulated a question for you, Griff. Um, uh, Near the beginning of the chapter, we're going to actually talk about the substance of the chapter now. The quote is, "For the time is at hand." It speaks of 7 candlesticks and 7 stars, and the Son of Man is described in vivid detail. Could you give us some context on that and tell us how we should look at this first chapter and how it impacts the rest of the book of Revelation?
Absolutely. Wholeness and wellness, everyone. Happy Gregorian New Year. My computer's been freezing up, so hopefully I can get through this without the computer freezing up. First, I would definitely like to go back to something Pastor Archie talked about when he said that, or what Queen Anala talked about with the Alpha and Omega and the beginning to the end, because you're dealing with the human body, of course. And I'm going to try to unpack this so that it's not jumbled and scrambled for everyone. One of the origins of another theory for the origin of the book of Revelations is the Sibylline oracles. You can look that up. I'll spell that word for you. That's Sibylline, Sibylline oracles. Sibylline. That is a collection of books, a total of 22. There are 14 books and 8 fragments. And that has also been cited as a source of the book of Revelations. Now, what's so interesting about that is if you add 14 and 8, you come up with 22, which is the exact number of books in the book of Revelations. You can also come up with, if you look at your brain or you look at your skull, you have exactly 22 bones in your skull. And there are 14 facial bones and then the other 8. So obviously there's a correlation between this book and the so-called brain, or the skull. So then as you progress and look at from, as we said, Alpha to Omega, the Old Testament to the New Testament, the key word here is testament. Testa comes from the word testes, which deals with the scrotum. Also, you can look up the word testes and it also means skull. So we're going from the Alpha to the Omega. So from that 7-part that you just mentioned, deals with the 7 endocrine glands, major endocrine glands that are located from the skull to the testes, because you have no endocrine glands from your legs down. So when you're dealing with the book of Revelations and those 7 seals, those 7 candles, those 7 spirits, you're dealing with the 7 chakras. Chakras are energy centers found in the body that spin a certain area and they overlay certain endocrine glands. Your endocrine glands are glands inside your body that regulate your sleep patterns, your growth patterns, your reproductive cycles. And you know what I mean? Like one of them, the pancreas regulates how much insulin is put in your body. The thalamus gland, the thymus gland, you know, so you have these different glands in your body that are overlaid by these 7 chakras. So then this book is telling you, it's going to be telling you, as we unpack it, it's going to be telling you about how your body functions and how those 7 symbols or those 7 chakras overlay those endocrine glands, as well as it's going to be giving you the major parts of your body, because again, no endocrine glands exist below your sexual region, and then the highest of them exist in your pineal, your thalamus, and your pituitary gland, which regulate serotonin and melatonin within your body, and they help how you function. So as we unpack this, we're going to learn more and more about how the body works and how this book is talking about your body, and as Pastor said, and going to the higher level of being reborn again. So everything that the previous two speakers at SRC spoke about is everything that we're going to be unpacking for the next, I don't know, month or two. So I look forward to this. This is going to be really exciting to me.
Ask a question, if I could, Thomas, to Griff. So when it talks about the Son of Man clothed in a garment down to the foot, why was that so? Why was that so? It's like they went through a lot of trouble or a lot of work to say things. Did they not understand what that meant? So what is that when you mean a garment down to the foot and girt about the paps with a golden girdle? I mean, even the color golden. So define that. Talk a little bit about that. What does that mean?
Sure. What you're looking at is when you look at the body, right? The body, as we've talked about in previous episodes, it relates to astrology. So you can put it in what we call iatromathematics or medical astrology. However, those 12 planets are ruled by 7, or those 12 zodiac signs are ruled by 7 planets, because the ancients only identified with the naked eye 7 planets. So those 12 planets, or those 12 zodiac signs are ruled by 7 planets: the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Okay. So as we get this description in Revelations 1 chapter, I think, starting in chapter 13, and it says that his hair was like lamb's wool. Well, what's a lamb? That's a ram. So Aries rules the head. Then it talks about how he had the golden sash across his girdle, and that is Venus. Venus rules that area. Venus, there's something in the astrological world called Venus's belt, and it's gold, and they consider it gold. As you go down, and it talks about he had a raspy voice, right? And that dealt with the throat area. That's dealing with Jupiter. You go on down the body, and it talks about he had feet that was burnt like brass. Well, if you guys recall, I think it's the book of Ezekiel or Zechariah, it talks about that beast, or that man that had a head of gold. He had silver in his chest. He had tin and lead and iron for his feet. That's dealing with that particular portion when you get down to the brass, because that's one of the lower metals. If you notice from that description, you're dealing with the hardest metals, and as they continue to go up the brain or go up the body, the metal becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, or it becomes more precious, if I could change it to that, a precious metal. So down at the feet, you're dealing with iron and clay and brass. And as it continues to rise up, it turns into gold, with silver here and then gold here. So then that's what you're dealing with. When you see in this description, a lot of Pan-Africanists, or people that look at the Bible and want to make Jesus black, and they use this description because it does appear on the surface to describe a black man. But when you understand that this book is really about astrology in your body, then you understand it's giving you the 7 different planets that rule the body. And it's breaking down those in that description. So that's what you're looking at, is this being that, or is just describing those 7 planets that rule the 12 zodiacs that overlay the body. And that's what you're looking at.
Okay. So, Doctor, when you say the being, that this being is clothed or he's adorned in such a way, what are we talking about? The being, is that man, or is that the universe itself?
That's every man. But again, as we understand, this zodiac, this body corresponds to the solar system. So we have the sun, like if you look at any cell on your body, you have a nucleus, and then you have protons, electrons, and neurons that rotate around that nucleus. The same way we have a central sun, and we have the 9 planets with the moons that circulate around that sun. So then we're looking at a replica of the universe anytime you look at any portion of the human body. So when you're talking about this being, you're just really just breaking down how the correlation, as it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth, or as above, so below, the microcosm, the alpha, and the macrocosm, the omega.
Okay.
Same concept, if
Yeah.
I answered your question.
I think you did.
Okay.
Could I ask Archie, Pastor Archie, a question? Because he mentioned about, you know, the life and the death. It says in the chapter 18 of first book of Revelation, he says, I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and death. And see, people have said, you know, that's what really terrified a lot of people, because you know, you thought that you were taught that, oh, I'm coming back and I have the keys of life and death, and I even have the keys to hell. So it made everybody kind of think they were going to hell. What does it mean, Pastor Archie, about the dead, the living and the dead? Because you kind of mentioned that in your talk.
The living and the dead. Well, you know, everyone is afraid of dying, and you always hear the people say, yeah, you know, I want to go to heaven, but I'm afraid to die, or people want to go to heaven afraid. But heaven really it exists within you. See, and heaven is not outside of you. It even was referred to in the Bible that heaven is in you. To die, as I was mentioning, is in order to be born again, you have to die. And as far as the body is concerned, we look at the body as when it dies here on earth, it's gone, but it's really not. It's going back to where it came from, and the soul moves on. Now, I imagine Dr. Griffo could explain a little better about the seven consciousnesses that we have, and how you know, from what I believe the Hindus believe, that, you know, there you have 7 times to get it right, and you may be born over and over again, or reincarnated and over, you know. So if you, as I research, and I see that in order for the Kundalini to rise up, you have to, the initiate, he was, and we go back to what you were saying, the name of the revelation was, it was about initiation. You had to be and ready for that to happen. You have to be, one of the things that you had to be was celibate, and you had to make sure that you weren't engaging in sex. That was one of the first rules of the initiate. But it was talking about initiation. It was talking about you kill those sensuous ways, those desires that and you might have heard me say before that animalistic thinking. You have to move out of that level in order to begin to rise up to where you actually live. So dying and being born again. I hope if I can't, if you don't understand what I'm saying, I hope a professor can enlighten it a little bit more. Is that you have to kill desires. It's talking about the desires, and when we're talking about dying and living again, it's talking about killing the desires in our bodies, in our sensuous ways, our sexual appetites, and killing it in order to gain that higher power of being able to live, which moves you up to a higher level and a higher way of thinking. I hope that I
yes, you answered it. So in other words, there is a physical death which calls you to move to the higher plane, and also there is a spiritual death, because now you're dying to those
sensuous ways.
Yeah, the ways on earth, the natural ways. So you're dying to those. So you actually, as Tamisha would always say, you have to allow yourself to die to the old ways of thinking mentally, is what she has been talking about. So is that, well, what I think you are saying? I see that Dr. Griffo was shaking his head.
Yeah. Let me jump back in right quick, because while I'm thinking about it, that I think the 7 consciousnesses that we have, you're gonna find the first three are the lower ones. Then the next two, you're moving up, I think, to where a professor was talking about between the Adamant and the Adam's apple and so forth. We'll get to it. But the five senses is where everyone has. That 6th and 7th sense is where you have actually moved up above that lower level of thinking. That way have died to you. And now you're living as a seer or a sage. That's the seer and sage level up in the 6th and the 7th sense.
Got that. So, and that's what Revelation, the book of Revelation, because we are on the first chapter. So that is what that book is talking about.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to get to it. You're going to see how we have to kill that move out of that lower level and move on up, and we'll start to seeing where how the building was measured. And because all the time I've been in ministry for a long time, and I've been preaching the basic stuff for a long time, but I'm finding out that when they talked about that building, it was actually talking about us.
I want to ask, if I could, one more question, Mark Thomas. In verse 20, it talks about, Dr. Griffo, the mystery of the 7 stars. And I know you talked about that when you were responding to the question that was asked. But would you tell me what does it do for me? What is the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand and the 7 golden candlesticks? The 7 stars are the angels of the 7, all that. What does that do for me as a human being on earth? Why do I need to know any of that? What is that going to help me do in my life?
It kind of just goes right back into what Pastor Archie was saying. You have those 7 chakras. So you have the center point is the heart. So you have 3 above the heart and 3 below the heart, with the heart being the central one. So as you understand that these 7 stars, these 7 candles, these 7 everything relates to those 7 planets, which overlay those 12. If you're living in the area from your heart above, which is considered heaven, then that will take you to a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of existence. But if you're living in those ones below the earth or the heart, because if you take the word earth and take the H at the end and move it to the front, you get the word heart. Or if you put it back, it means earth. So anything below the earth, as we're taught in religion, is hell. And those are the lower 3 chakras that control our urges, our sexual urges, our appetite, our root desires. And so when you're in earth, then you are indeed in hell. You are suffering, you are desiring. And as Buddha taught, the lead to all suffering is desire. So when you get rid of your desires and live in the spiritual realm, then you'll be living in your true purpose. If we just look around, I'm gonna make this real quick and back over. Just look around at all the food restaurants that exist. The basic colors of those restaurants are red, orange, and yellow, because those deal with the lower 3 chakras and the base desire for fast food. Or anytime they talk about lust and desire, it's always a red color. They put the woman with red lipstick on to make her sexually desirable. You understand? So then when you understand how the color-coded system of everything and how those chakras overlay with that color-coded system, you'll see that you're supposed to be in the blue, the indigo, and the purple area, or the green above, as opposed to the orange, the yellow, and the red, which deals with the lower vibrations. So by understanding that and those 7 stars and how those 7 stars are related to each chakra, then you'll understand, or you should try to move toward living in a higher existence or anything above the earth as opposed to anything below the earth.
I understand that now. And it really takes me back to one of the series that we had when we talked about the lower instinctive lower level animal instincts, and moving then to intellectual instincts, and then of course the spiritual instincts. So and I see a comment from Tamisha that says, I understand that the work is for lower and higher to work together. So therefore, So you need your instincts, you need your intellectual, you need the spiritual. So really what this is telling us is teaching us that we have all these things within us. Learn how to manage them, then learn how
Right.
to work. They all supposed to work together in union. So
Absolutely.
not so much about killing one off, but managing all of those, because you have them. You can't get rid of them.
You can't get rid of them. So this is why when the book speaks of the beast man, it's talking about somebody living in the lower level. Then when it talks about the son of man, it talks about somebody that's living in the higher level. So you're right. You do have to have that balance. And that's why I said the heart is the middle chakra, the fourth chakra. So it's the balancing point of whether or not you're going to live as a son of man, or you're going to live as a beast man if you go below the heart. So absolutely.
Okay, great. Because we need all of, we need the sexual, we need all of that. Okay,
Yes,
great.
because the lower chakras are for survival. Absolutely.
That's it. Because we need to know when to run, don't we? When
Right. As well as if we didn't have that desire to eat, then we'd starve to death.
Okay. That's an interesting conversation. I think I read in that pamphlet, Anala, the same one that you read, how these 7 chakras, they're not like shelves, it's not like you're climbing up a shelves and you're leaving one shelf behind to get onto the other. You keep everything with you. I think that's a good way for me to think of it.
I just want to mention one other thing, like Tamisha said, is it's also dying to those old ideals, the ones that we were taught way back. And this is, I believe now that we're in this great conjunction where these new ideals, the Aquarius purity has opened up to us. So it's right, Tamisha, it's killing those old ideals, what we thought about those old ideals, and even what we thought about ourselves. So
right. Well, we're about out of time, believe it or not, so we're going to start to wrap this up. Nolly, we've just barely broken the surface of the book itself, so we're going to get into it a lot deeper next week. Nolly, why don't you want to give us a little idea of what we're going to see next week?
Well, as you mentioned, Thomas, we just kind of got into the book of Revelation. We talked about where Revelation came from. We always thought, that Jesus, the person that the story tells us that Jesus gave it to John and John was giving it to us. But now we understand that it was actually written by someone who had a state of mind of egotism. They wanted to make money. They wanted to be noticed and all those things. So now we know that. So, and I still encourage people to go look at it for yourself. But we're going to move into next week. We're going to move into chapter 2, and we're going to still continue to talk about the symbolisms in the Bible, because there's so much, and we're going to tell them how they affect your life. So tell someone else that wasn't here today to hopefully chime in for next week, because it's going to be a great show. And as we mentioned, we're going to take our time. If you have questions about anything that we've been talking about, please make sure that you send those questions to us, because we want to respond to them, because we want you to be free from fear of dying or free from going to hell, as we've been taught in religion about Revelation.
Okay. You have any SRC news to talk about today?
Absolutely. We want to talk about the SRC challenge. Again, that information is on your newsletter. You can go to our channel, the SRC YouTube channel, and find more about the SRC challenge. But what we're going to do this time, because this series is going to be so long, we're actually going to, whoever sends in their summary and all of that at the end of this series, and go, and I'm not going to explain to you what that is, but go look at it and on the newsletter, read the newsletter, and understand exactly what you need to do. We're going to be giving $50 to the person who wins that SRC challenge this time, because we know it's not 1 month that we're going to be finished with this. As Dr. Griffo said, it's probably going to take a couple months or so to get through this book. And also, I know that you are normally used to getting our newsletter on a monthly basis. We moved that to a quarterly basis, so you will not get another newsletter until the next quarter.
All right, thank you for that. I guess that's it. Anybody else have any comments they want to make before we sign off?
Yeah, I would just like to say, Thomas, that we need the audience keep in mind that we've been completely deceived before. So and we don't know what has been done to us to keep us in darkness, because we were taught lies. And just open up your minds and have a open mind about what we are teaching here, and you're going to learn something.
All right, that's good. Okay, all of us here with SRC want to thank the audience as always for sitting in on today's presentation. Our next episode in this series is going to be next week. That's the 17th, 10 o'clock Eastern time. So please join us. We will really appreciate everyone's patronage and encourage you to email us your questions or comments at shiftingreligiousconcepts@gmail.com. If anyone is interested in advertising with SRC, please contact us at that same email. And also don't forget that this presentation will be available on YouTube within the next few days. Even if you attended today's program, please go to the Shifting Religious Concepts channel and give us a thumbs up and subscribe. This is one of the few ways we have to get public attention and really helps us to promote our mission. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, go to shiftingreligiousconcepts.com/registration and join us. So that does it for today's broadcast. We wish you all peace, health, wisdom, and love, of course. See you in a few weeks. See you in a week.
Yes. Take care.